Brian, can you hear us?
I can. Jason, are you good?
Yeah, I'm good to go. Thank you.
Cool. All right, let me pop up the agenda. So let's go ahead and call the special meeting of the Redevelopment Commission to order this morning and get right to item number 2. Bill.
So I'd like to start with item number 2, which is resolution 2021. Do we need to take attendance first?
No, we take a roll call.
We're going to take roll call first, real quick. Mr. Pulowski?
Yeah.
Present and virtual. Mr. Jordan?
Here.
Present and in person. Mr. Critchlow?
Here.
Present and virtual. Ms. Ranierson?
Here.
Present and in person. And Mr. Grape?
Here.
Present and in person. Mr. Beeler? Not present. Thank you very much. Resolution 2021-17 is a resolution of the St. Joseph County Redevelopment Commission authorizing funds for the renovation of the new Carlisle Olive Township Fire Station facility. I will talk very briefly about this and then turn it over to some others that are here to speak today. One of the things the Redevelopment Commission has done as part of our work in the new Carlisle area, as well as our other economic development areas, is trying to work with our partners in public safety and the towns and the townships to try to make sure funds are adequate or funds are available for projects. In this particular case, a public safety project, as the township and the town have put together a fire territory out in the western part of St. Joseph County. Obviously, their responsibilities are a lot different than some of the other towns and townships and territories because of not only the town, but the rural areas, but also the growing industrial areas out in the IEC. Very few areas, very few rural areas have the industrial development that obviously exists with IATech or Cleveland Cliffs Tech and Coat, Unifrax, and some of the other businesses like that. So this request was given to us back in June. We reviewed our finances. We found that they had adequate monies available in 4302, I'm sorry, which is the new Carlisle TIF district, if the commission so chose to fund this request. That would be the end of my presentation. I would turn it over to Mr. Miller, the Township Trustee.
Hi there. I'm Will Miller with Olive Township. I'm the trustee, and so basically we formed the territory from the we used to be a volunteer fire and EMS service. So basically the station was built for that, for volunteers. So it doesn't have housing and showers, things that you basically need for that 24-hour shift. And so working with architecture firm and a contractor on the renovations work scope, went through the bid process, and we had already secured a loan for what we had budgeted, which was $750,000. And when we got the bids back, it was almost double, basically from the cost of, construction costs just skyrocketed. So with that, then we have about $100,000 invested into this to date, based off of architectural fees and contractor fees. And so this would allow us to complete the project and give our firefighters and EMS personnel sleeping quarters, proper showering facilities, as well as other safety measures that really should be brought up to date for today's world. So, are there any questions at all?
Is the contract a fixed cost or cost plus?
It is a so we basically it's fixed to the contractor, so we're paying the fee for the contractor, but then we pay each subcontractor, but so those are fixed as well.
Okay,
so right. It's just kind of in a more roundabout way. So instead of everything going
the
through
prices
the
are locked in, I guess.
Right. As long as the bids are good until this coming Friday.
Gotcha.
So,
I understand.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
After that, then they can obviously change.
Who's the architect? Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Who's the architect on the project?
Yeah, architect is Shive Hatterley.
Used to be Epic.
Yeah, it used to be Epic.
just for purposes of the project, do they have post-construction management services you can engage them for to review the project, approve partial progress payments, make sure that everything's being done correctly? You have somebody that's going to keep an eye on that and make all those decisions and tell you when to make payments?
Right. Shive Hatterley and Core Construction is for the project management as well.
So, Bill, your thought would be, and I'm asking here, is that as the work progresses and is completed, you're going to have to kind of be a second set of eyes overseeing this a little bit, making sure, working with their architect and contractor, making sure that work is done in a workmanlike manner pursuant to the contract specs, and partial progress payments aren't made unless approved by the design professional. So that's kind of your thought, right? You're not just going to give $650,000 bucks. We're going to.
So if it comes in at $550,000, that would be that gap. That would be the amount to which we would.
Okay. So there's going to be oversight, and we're not going to just front the whole amount. We're going to review the project and make payments as needed. Correct. Okay. I just want to make sure about that.
We do have bi-weekly meetings, so with our executive board. So those meeting notes could always be forwarded over to Bill, or more than welcome to send someone out as well. So
that's all I had. Thank you.
Go ahead,
Bill,
Jason.
this is Jason. Yeah, I have a question for you. When was the decision made to go to a full-time fire station?
That was in 2000. The decision was made in 2019, and then we went to full-time in 2020.
So how have you don't have the facilities to facilitate overnight, sleeping and, caring for, the firefighters and EMS. So what have they been doing in the meantime?
So they've been sleeping in quarters above the township office, which is right next to the station. And so basically they sleep upstairs in the township office. If they get a call, then they have to go downstairs, out the building, into the station, and then to get their gear on.
So this project's been in the works though since 2019?
As far as the station renovation project?
Yes, I'm sorry.
Discussions started there, and then they kind of stalled. Number one, when we had a new town board kind of come in. We wanted to be respectful to that new town board, so we didn't want to push it for them. And then secondly, obviously with COVID, it really slowed the process as well.
And then my last question is, why the discrepancy between what was budgeted versus what, the bids are now coming in at? Well, to your best of your ability, was it just, didn't realize it'd be so much, or were you getting advised that it would be something else? What, can you talk about why this was unforeseen?
Right. I think it was just as a fire territory executive board, really didn't grasp how much it would really be. We thought that, we would be able to do everything that needed to be done for that, $750,000 budget that we put out there. And even the Core Construction and Shive Hatterley were surprised at how high those bids came in at. But we did have several bidders. So and we went with the lowest bid on each of those. So it wasn't that we're getting price gouged or anything. This is across the board that we're seeing these prices.
I don't have any other questions. Brian, thank you. Will.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jason. I would say not so much a question, but just I'd be interested to know going forward now as the new facilities ramp up, your training plans and stuff like that. I just mentioned that because I know there's a lot of partnerships for training in and around South Bend, a lot of new facilities there. So, as you contemplate what it is that you're constructing there and what plans you all have, I just ask that you keep kind of your sister services in mind, and if there's any opportunities to kind of partner up on training to do that. But
yeah, and Chief is here, and he's huge into training. So, yeah, if you have any specific questions.
Yeah, not a specific question, just throwing that out there for for future consideration. But are there any other questions from members on this?
My question is just comes to funding, because I know we don't have 650,000 just sitting there. When we started the double track project, which I assume this is where those funds are coming from, we even did the debt agreement because cash was going to be tight. So the question isn't anything about the project, but just what does this do to us next year, the year after, when the earmark, as it were, for those funds, you know, that the usage will come due, and will we have the money? Where's it going to come from?
So, great question. So the commission for a period of time was a good steward of the resources as they were waiting for projects or as they were working through projects. Money had accumulated in this account. In particular, this is not the bond account. This is not the double track account specifically. This is an account that, again, had generated revenue over a period of time, still is generating revenue, will be used, though, to start paying off the bond that was bought in 2016. So there is money that we had set aside this year. Where we've identified funds is specifically for property acquisition, demolition, and some site preparation work for properties adjacent to the former trailer park that were to be acquired at some point for a future train station. That project, right now, we still need to deal with the trailer park and some issues and utility relocations associated with that demolition. Some of the other property acquisition is not as pressing right now because of some other issues. So that's why we identified this. Now, if we take this money out, obviously this is money that once spent, whatever that amount is, isn't necessarily replenished directly. So we still get TIF increment that comes back in that could be used for projects or for these projects specifically. But once, again, this money is spent, that spends down that account permanently.
What happens if we approve, let's say, 500,000 instead of 650? I mean, or some number less than 650, which is potentially the bridge you need.
Right. We could pull from, we'll be going into an agreement with Hudson Township because we also serve Hudson Township. And so part of those funds could be pulled from that to help out. But to bridge that entire gap for us is just, right. So.
And Dennis, based on that question, the resolution in your packet today is specific to 650, which was the request. So that's why that number is in that resolution. So, but again, the commission has the discretion to make that value whatever it needs to be.
Okay.
I assumed if we.
So
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Brian.
I was gonna say, I assume if we cut into that at this point, I mean, given that the viz already came out double, we'd just be back here in another few months doing this again to bridge yet another gap. So I almost say, let's make the commitment and stick to it out of the gate. But go ahead, Jason.
Well, I was just going to ask, I mean, it doesn't concern redevelopment monies in particular, but is Laporte County contributing to the project in any way, or is it just due to the service agreements you have with their township?
Right, so Laporte County is not contributing at all because Hudson Township is not part of the territory. So they contract us for that service. So when we had the opportunity to include them, when we formed the territory, they backed out at the last minute. So right now, as it stands, it's Olive Township and the town of New Carlisle that are part of the territory, and so that's where all the funding comes from.
If that were to change in the future, and if this were to proceed, maybe that's something for you to keep in mind as trustee, and when you're negotiating them with them in the future.
Yeah, we would love to bring them on, and we're continuously in the works to bring Hudson Township on and include them into the territory. And we're hoping to do so next year. Actually, it would go into effect in 2023. Yeah. So.
All right, if there are no other questions, I'd ask for a motion on the resolution.
So moved.
I'll go ahead and second. Jamie?
We have a motion and a second. We'll have a roll call vote. Mr. Jordan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Greip, how do you vote?
Aye.
Ms. Renierson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Critchlow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Pulaski, how do you vote?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously, 5-0.
Thank you. Yep. Bill, you want to jump down?
Yeah.
2021-18?
Yeah, Resolution 2021-18, I appreciate the commission's consideration of this request. Earlier this year, we sold 2 pieces of property that the commission didn't own. They were county-owned pieces of property. We took the proceeds into the General Redevelopment Commission Fund so that we could pay back expenses that we had. We had nearly a little over $50,000 of expenses that we had incurred from the General Redevelopment Commission Fund and some other funds to do all the pre-development work to sell those properties. As part of that, Outlet C, which is the southern parcel, had aggregate and other materials on the property that we wanted to move to be able to use for other road construction projects, things like that. We estimate that we used and moved about $300,000 worth of material. Saves us $300,000 down the road. We didn't leave it on a site. But just as we're working to do better accounting, we need to move money and put monies in the right line item. The line item that we'd used, that we spent down for the rental of equipment to do the loading and do the moving of the, was the line that we use for general purposes in our highway department to do rental of equipment, specifically propane for a lot of our vehicles. We don't have money in that account now, we're in the red, and so we can't get propane for our vehicles, so it puts a crimp in the highway department operation. So what we're asking is your approval of this, just to split the funds, move the funds where they need to go and put them in the right place so we can get our account balances back in place. So again, I appreciate your consideration of this resolution.
Questions on this? Anyone? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
I'd second.
Mr. Pulaski, we have a motion and a second. We'll call the roll. Mr. Jordan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Greip, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Renierson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Critchlow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Pulaski, how do you vote?
Yes.
Motion passes unanimously, 5-0.
Okay, at this point, we'll move into the public comment period. Anyone wishing to make a public comment, please state your name and address for the record and be aware of the time limit.
Andy Finley, County Commissioner, District 1, offices on the 7th floor of the County City Building. I want to thank the Commission's efforts today in funding the Olive Township Fire Station, or that portion of it. I think it's an important piece as we look not just for future development, but the development that we already have in the northwestern portion of the county. I think it's important that we continue to be good partners with the township and with the town. So I appreciate your efforts to that end.
And I'm Dr. Deb Fleming, Commissioner 2, and I agree with, I was going to say what Andy said, so I do agree with that. Thank you so much for what you're doing. Hope we're going to work together well. Thank you. I love to help people. That's awesome.
Dan Caruso, 305 Compton Street, New Carlisle. I was glad to hear Mr. Shalio mention the crumbling trailer park there and the issues that it presents. I would sure like to see something. I know if I had a piece of property that looked like that, somebody from the county is going to be out there banging on my door telling me to clean it up or we'll clean it up for you. It looks worse now than it has at any time in its existence. There's 8 trailers that remain there from the original, I believe, 27. They've remained, nothing has been done to that place since Christmas Eve. The excavator sat there, I believe, broke down and just sat there. And now the excavator's gone, but the trailers still sit there just crumbling. And I've seen a few questionable folks. I doubt that they are really vacant. There are some wanderers that are housing in those areas. And it's just not, it's got to be taken care of. I would hope the county will jump on them and say, whoever it was that was the bidder to clear that out, finish the job. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
I'm Carol Hesh, 505 South Bray Street, New Carlisle. I am on the advisory board for Olive Township Trustee. And I just also want to ditto these guys. Thank you so much for your assistance.
Any further public comment? Seeing none, I would make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Jordan, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Greif, how do you vote?
Yes.
Ms. Renierson, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Critchlow, how do you vote?
Yes.
Mr. Pulaski, how do you vote?
Yes, sir.
We're adjourned.
Thank you, guys.
Sore.
Have a good one.
That's good.